Series of election specials over the week, and we did last week and following week. Portlaw, Kilmacthomas area at first. We've got John O'Leary sitting Sinn Fein, sitting Fianna Fáil councillor, Declan Clune sitting Sinn Fein councillor, and Ger Barron, Labour. Previously, of course, a Labour councillor for the Comeragh area.
That's right.
And you're back, Ger. You're still hanging in there.
I'm trying to hang in there, Damien. Yeah.
Hang in there, yeah.
Do my best.
How are Labour going to get an resurgence, huh?
It's very hard to know. It's very hard to know. We seem to be in the doldrums. I'm not sure how you can turn things around. I do know this time out that the venom that was thrown at us isn't there. We're at the very least neutral.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to benefit from that people have, I won't say completely forgiven us, but they realised that it was a very difficult situation, a very difficult time to be in government. And
you're trying to get them to forget as well as forgive.
And not forget, no, because there's a lot of things we need to get right. A lot of things we need to say we got it wrong, and we have. Are
you going out there mainly as a kind of your own man as opposed to a party candidate? Because like Labour Party, they're not even running candidates in different constituencies in the country.
We found it difficult to find candidates in places. I'm running as myself, as I always did.
Yes.
In a way, I carried the Labour badge with me proudly. But I would say to you is I'm a community man, community worker. I've always been like that. I've done it outside of politics. In fact, I tell a story. The first time I ever got involved in politics, and the reason I went for council first was our local library was closed down. So it's that kind of involvement.
Yes,
we have very little as councillors. I'm not a councillor at present, but we have very little power over national policy.
Yeah.
We can only, try to advise our parties, and a hell of a lot of time they don't listen to us.
And how sore do you feel about, we'd say, this man's party that's sitting opposite you, Fianna Fáil, that he basically took all the blame for this? What do you have to say to Fianna Fáil? Why didn't they take the... Well, they took a fair bit of stick, didn't they?
They did. I mean, it comes... The tide goes in and the tide goes out. You take it as it is. I suppose in general, we haven't had an awful lot of change in government in this country. We've always had one or two of the big parties in government. So it's one of the smaller parties is always going to have to take part in the era of coalition. And I believe that we're stuck in that era for a long, long time now, and we will be. I think because most people have no very hard alliances anymore that they would have.
John O'Leary, can you say sorry to Labour?
Well, I'll tell you what I would say about that whole era.
Apologise to poor Ger and the party.
What I'd say about that whole era, there was a worldwide international downturn. Lehman's was first probably to break up, and that followed right around Europe, and obviously it hit Ireland as well. But
are you still getting it on the doors? Or is it history now?
Well, it's not, no, because I'd say we've acted as a party very responsible, I suppose, in the last 5 years, and I think we've recompensed for that. But
you're propping up the government, obviously.
Well, what we're doing is we're facilitating the country. We're doing this for the country. We're doing this so as the people of Ireland will have a country. Will have we, at the last general election, Micheál Martin stood up in the door and was nominated for Taoiseach. He failed to get the support of any parties or indeed the independents. So he tried that, I think, on 2 different occasions. So what happened then was Fianna Fáil had the option to, we didn't want to have the scenario like we had back in the 80s where we had 3 general elections, one after the other.
Because you were afraid you were going to be completely wiped out.
No, it wasn't. It was for the country, for the sake of the country. It needed to be done. We didn't get the required number of seats to form a government. We were depending on other parties and independents, which we didn't get.
And what have you got to say this week, for example, to the Taoiseach, whom you're facilitating in government, and what he said regarding the mortuary?
Absolutely disgraceful what the Taoiseach said, and he made such a botch of it. But there has been nothing surprising from the Taoiseach in his performance since he has become Taoiseach.
But again, how do you square that with the fact that you're still facilitating and supporting them? You're going back to this mantra that no, it's for the sake of the country. So no matter what the Taoiseach says or does, you have to support them.
Listen, but come here, what we are working towards, and inevitably, and sooner rather than later, there will be a general election, right? And that is coming up sooner rather than later. And we will be given the opportunity to the Irish people to judge on our performance over the last 4 years. And we've done quite well under the supply and confidence arrangement. There's a number of issues that we have got.
And we'll go on to those issues
We've had
now.
a say in the last 3 budgets, which have had real meaningful contributions to the Irish people.
And we'll have a quick thing on that now in a second. Declan Clune from Sinn Fein. Will you get into bed with John O'Leary's party after the next general election?
Like I said to you a couple of weeks ago, Damien, when I was on and you brought up the prospect of getting into bed, as you put it, with Fine Gael, I'd be open-minded. Nobody can predict the future, but like I said, we
What
would
about
only
Fianna Fáil? Be closer to them?
We would only be, well, I don't think so, you know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily say we're closer. Like, it's hard to consider a Republican, a party that considered itself a Republican party when they would consider swearing allegiance to a queen. So it's kind of, that's more anti-Republican than anything. But that's just why it's not personal about John.
That's all,
you know
that's
what I mean?
old-time politics.
No, but it's the
Jamie,
truth. But it's
Jamie,
the truth.
the fact of
But
the
you're
matter
a
is-
Republican, John.
John
The fact
O'Leary,
of
would
the
you
matter
swear
is-
allegiance to the Queen if you were taking your seat
The
in the
fact
British
of the
Parliament?
matter is, that if I stood in an election and knew and know that would be part of being a part of the English Parliament, that I would not stand for the
So
election.
what do you think of
of
Sinn Féin? What do you think of Sinn Féin?
I think what we have, look, Sinn Féin is the party of abstentionists, right? The Northern Assembly has collapsed. There's been vital talks in England over the Brexit situation. Sinn Féin has been absent. They've collapsed the government in Northern Ireland. They've failed to support anybody for Taoiseach here. So what you tell me, is that what people are electing? Is that what the election is electing people to abstain?
Declan Clune?
Not to be involved?
You're full of absenteeism.
Yeah, and look, that's
Jared,
the
let's go
standard
back in a
story,
second.
you know, particularly when a
Well,
party
is it not the truth? Is it not the truth that John O'Leary is saying?
Just a moment there, if you don't mind, thanks. It's interesting to come from John, who represents absolutely, or his party, who represents not one single person up in the north. But regardless of that, like,
Answer the question,
I
please.
certainly will. If you look at the lack of government up in the north, that's purely down to the Cash for Ash scandal. Now, I know John and his party would be used to financial scandals, but I really don't think.
That's
No,
rich coming from Sinn Féin, I can tell you
But
that.
you know, it was collapsed on principle. You know, there was a deal done in March of last year with the DUP. The DUP walked away for it because they
The
couldn't.
inquiry's been held. So now why aren't you sorted out? I know there's talks, yeah, but like that's only because of the death of a young journalist.
Yeah, you're probably right. That was probably the catalyst. It's absolutely disgraceful that it had to come to that. But at the end of the day, we're always open. We're ready for talks. We're ready to go back into government. But we're not going to go into it for the sake of going into it, just to make up the numbers. That's completely at odds with our principles.
Sure, what do you think of these lads squabbling or talking about this?
I suppose, you know, the point John makes is correct, that Sinn Féin have abstained from going into government in this country when there was an opportunity. They
And
have
when Labour
abstained.
go into government,
We went into government and took the
And
hit for it.
took the hit because you had to-
And we tried to do our best. You know.
Declan?
Yeah, and just on that, Ger, back in when you did enter government, your grassroots voted against going into government with Fine Gael, but you overturned it. I checked it out there last night. No, that's correct. It's on the journal.
Okay, let Ger
At the party conference, we voted overwhelmingly to do it. And Eamon Gilmore gave us a warning that we would be walking into conferences through a sea of placards, but yet we took up we had the courage to take up the task and turn the country around. In a time when we were being hounded by the banks, hounded by international financiers, and we stabilised the country.
so it's grand for you, Declan, to be shouting from the sidelines, no?
We'd have different, I suppose, views on how you stabilise the country. You know, certainly the introduction of water charges, certainly to take the medical cards off sick children. You know, they wouldn't be certainly policies
No,
that
I
I would
think so. I
support
wouldn't stand
over.
over either.
Yeah, I know, but
But-
your party implemented it.
Well,
That's
we
the
were
truth.
part of a
Would you
coalition.
agree? Would you agree that's the truth?
We were part
Well,
of
would you agree that's the truth?
We were a part of a right-wing coalition, a right-wing party, and they implemented those. We, like John's party at the moment.
But you were
John,
part of the
okay,
government.
John
You were
O'Leary,
part of the government.
Declan, 1 second. John, it's all your fault. Fianna Fáil.
No, just talking on the water charges, right? There was huffing and puffing, and there was demonstrations right throughout this city and country in the confidence and supply arrangement. And people should never forget this. Fianna Fáil's negotiation in reply to the supply and confidence meant that water charges were finished under that agreement. That was one of the pluses that Fianna Fáil got for this.
So you're saying
country in
Fianna
the supply
Fáil
and
stopped the
confidence.
water charges, not the protests?
Yeah, and look,
Fianna Fáil made a decision and support and got the support. And has anybody received a water charge bill since Fianna Fáil was entered the supply and confidence arrangement?
Declan?
Answer that question.
Just two quick things on that. Number one, water charges haven't been abolished. They reckon for 92% of people that have meters. That doesn't take into account the hundreds of thousands of people that don't have meters. Excuse me. Plus, it was kicked down the road again this year. It was supposed to be brought back out. Just in terms of the confidence in supply, or as we like to call it, the no confidence and very little supply. the last 6 months of last year, there was a big review, a big high-profile review done up to Christmas. Now, I don't know of any other organisation that after a 3-year deal only starts to do a review then. Surely there was monthly, quarterly interviews. But John, can you tell me now how many representations went from Fianna Fáil councillors or Deputy Butler into that whole process to look for 24/7 in Christmas just gone there? Was there any representations made as part of the new confidence supply or the extension of it that, was there any demands made around 24/7, regardless of exactly what's going on at the moment and all the talks, etc.?
Briefly, John.
Of course they have been, and there have been talks with all, and to be fair, there have been talks with all parties, with David Cullen, with John Halligan, with Mary Butler. They have worked together, in fairness, in unison to try and resolve the 24/7. But the critical point is here, when Fianna Fáil stood in the last election, Fianna Fáil said if they were elected to government, they weren't elected to government, that they would have brought in 24/7.
They would have delivered it.
They would have.
Okay, I'm going to talk about delivery. I'm going to talk about delivery, a lot more issues just after this.
We are in government.
We are joined by John O'Leary, Fianna Fáil, Declan Clune, Sinn Fein, Ger Barron, Labour Party, and we're going to talk about some other local issues now as well. But on the mayor, there's a big vote coming up about whether we should have a mayor or not. Declan Clune, Sinn Fein, yes or no? Should we be in favour of a directly elected mayor?
Yes, in principle.
Yes on this as well.
Yes,
So you're telling people to vote yes.
Well, what I would say is that,
Are you telling people to vote yes? That's
please,
grand.
yeah.
John O'Leary.
Totally opposed.
Totally opposed? Because you're afraid of
yeah.
losing all the little things that councillors
No, I'm
get.
certainly not. But I tell you what,
Why are you against it?
Because of the cost effects. Number one, it will come out of our council budget of a cost of about 350,000 a year, right? And then the structure.
I'll have you back in a second, Declan. Don't worry.
The structure to me is not correct, because where is the role then for the county manager? What is the role of the mayor? I see myself as a county councillor. I was elected by the people to represent the people and to get the best deal for people from the officials.
Okay,
and
you're in favour of it. You're against it then.
I'm
You're
against,
voting no. That's fine. Hold on a
they
second.
don't really have powers. Then the directly elected mayor won't have powers in relation to the budget. He won't have powers in relation to planning. So what is his remit?
Okay, Declan, we'll have you back in a second. Ger Barron, Labour.
Well, I'm still undecided on this one.
Ger.
I know, but it's a very complex area. As a Democrat, I believe in the one vote.
How can you still be undecided with like 2 weeks to go?
Well,
what's going to change your mind?
I haven't really looked at. I would wonder as to what will the county manager be doing if the mayor's going to be making the executive decisions. I mean, I can't understand. I can't square that one in my own head.
So what are you telling your supporters about yes or no? If somebody says, where do you stand on it? Are you sitting on the fence?
I'm not. I'm leaning towards no.
You're leaning towards no. Are you leaning on the fence towards no? Declan, is he leaning on the fence towards no?
I can't answer for Ger, Damien, but just to give you my own piece on it, right? Like I said, in principle, I'm 100%, in favour of a directly elected mayor. It means basically the people of Waterford and City and County can elect who actually represents them, whereas at the moment it's decided by the pact every year, So as well as that, what you have to bear in mind is that at this moment in time, it's only a proposal, right? There's no legislation gone through. There's no meat on the bones. Like, the figures, our major concern is obviously the figures, a salary of 130 grand, 66 grand for advisors, 36 grand for a driver. That's all Walter Mitty stuff. That's crazy stuff, you know what I mean? So, I think, this plebiscite is purely about deciding whether we want the right to elect a mayor or not, okay? I think there's a lot of stuff getting muddied in the water, but what I do genuinely think is that after that is the time when the legislation can be tailored, can be shaped to reflect what people actually expect. And just coincidentally, it's kind of, I think, a false outrage. I'm not sure if it'd have the same outrage because there's local elections coming. If this was 2 or 3 years ago or 2 or 3 years' time, I think it'd be a different scenario from the parties, the major parties, because they're all the parties.
Okay,
that's why they're against.
Come back to that in a second. Speaking of outrages, what are local people telling you, Ger Barron, that they're outraged about?
Well, obviously,
what are the issues that are affecting people in your area?
Well, housing is a huge issue.
Housing
is probably the scandal that we have in local government, and we're not building any houses. We haven't built houses for years and years and years, and that came back from a government decision years ago not to start to basically run down the Waterford and all the county councils' housing office.
And what else?
And broadband is another issue that's taken up with people.
The government are saying they're just issuing a new 3 billion.
Yeah, but look, it's gone on forever. And how much is it going to cost everyone individually? How much is it going to cost? And I do believe that we should give every rural area, every rural house should have it. And I think it's something
no matter what the cost.
The cost is huge, and we have to look at that cost. But it's a little bit like the rural electrification, which incidentally my father worked on. And they went to every single boreen in every lane and brought electricity. We have to do that with broadband. Broadband is the new electricity.
Okay. John O'Leary, what are the people telling you that they want you to see sorted?
Well, here, when I'm on the doorways, there's a total variance. Everybody has their own issues, but health is a real big issue. And it's not only 24/7, Damien, it's the number of people who cannot get first-time appointments, right? And that is crucial for people who are suffering, people who need to get in to the system. And, you know, one has to question the consultants here in this, because I believe this, right? I believe that people who are in private health are getting the heads up. They're getting in before the ordinary people who are not in a health system. And to me, that is absolutely unfair. Housing is another big issue, as Ger Barron has said here. Look, the amount of people who are frustrated in the Comeragh area alone, there's 200 people on the housing list. There's now landlords coming along and upping the price. And, you know, the housing assistance payment doesn't move in line with that.
Okay.
So this is how we're finding people in a homeless situation.
Pause there for a second. Declan Clune, what are you getting on the doorsteps?
To be honest, Damien, it's mainly the health service and the lack of health facilities. We all know about 24/7. We have over the last 2 weeks the shocking story around the mortuary. We're looking at huge waiting lists for CAMS, you know, which is the Child and Adult Mental Health Service appointments. There's a serious lack of investment. We know we can't get staff for the new Dunmorring. They said there's no money for it. You know what I mean? So, like, to be honest, like housing, and that's all bread and butter stuff. That's coming up the whole time. But the whole health side, it's evolving constantly. There's new challenges coming up, you know what I mean? And people are very, very concerned. Like, I have a lady now who's waiting on a hip replacement for the last 2 years, like, you know, and we're trying everything to get it done, but she's just, there's hundreds in front of her, you know what I mean? There's children there that are waiting for speech and language therapy, waiting 6, 8, 10 months at a very, very important time of their lives, and they're just not getting what they need.
Ger Barron, why should people vote for you to make a difference? What difference are you going to make?
I would say that I would like to continue my work on developing a tourist industry in the mid-county, which has started now. We must move on that, though. We can't just sit back and say it's going to happen. We need to develop it more and more. The Greenway has been the catalyst to this, and it has opened up and has given a new spirit to the people of that area. But we need to extend it. We need to extend it to places like Bunmahan, to the Mahon Falls, and we need to develop places like Stradbally and Kill, who could do with a little bit of a lift up. The mid-county area has been transformed.
It has, absolutely.
It's more positive, and it's good positive news.
Texter saying, Damien, water charges are not gone. Bills are being introduced through the back door. So-called usage charges, this person says. Also about posters. Are you putting up any posters near roundabouts, lads? No?
Well, I'm certainly not, but I can tell you
nothing.
everybody is not in the same vein as me. I've been very careful in relation to the use of postages, posters.
Yeah.
But Damien, you can view them yourselves, and there is posters very near to roundabouts.
Are you accusing Sinn Fein of doing that?
Look, I'm not. I'm just saying that they're nearer to than the required than what the law requires.
I'm sure I don't know what John has talked about, Damien, because we're also very, very careful with our postering teams.
Very, very careful.
Very careful.
But Damien,
and we also have the assistance of the environmental inspectors, Waterford Council, who are very kind to notify us if there is any infringements. So we're on top of that.
Yeah.
Why should anybody vote for you, John O'Leary, and vote for Fianna Fáil?
Anybody should vote for me on the basis of my hard work, my commitment, right? In health, through my Deputy Mary Butler, I've got her to raise numerous parliamentary questions in WLR. I've worked absolutely unbelievably hard at plenary meetings, at the Comeragh district meetings in relation to getting more housing. I'm also very conscious of our roads. I've been totally unhappy with the N25. I think that's on the public record. There's 12 to 14,000 users a day on that road in Cairns. I don't feel it's safe. I've been with Transport Infrastructure Ireland on 2 occasions. I'm not happy with their response.
Declan, he's doing a great job.
Oh, he's doing a fantastic job, but most councillors do all that. You know what I mean? I think it's the stuff you do outside that makes all the difference. You know, like, to be honest, Damien, I'm a community councillor. I have no airs or graces. I go, I meet people, I see what I can get done. You know, I have a good track record out there. That's just feedback I'm getting, and I just want to be able to continue that. There is a couple of kind of medium to long-term projects we're working on at the moment, such as extending the Greenway to Portlaw and Kill, and then obviously, you know, a cycleway out as far as Bunman to help rejuvenate all that area. There's various infrastructural developments in Portlaw village. So, you know, really, I just want to have the opportunity to continue what I was doing, and hopefully people will put their trust in me.
He's stealing your thunder, lads.
Well, no, actually,
No.
in relation to the Greenway there, Declan has failed to get to join the Greenway from Portlaw onto the Greenway. But I've been successful.
Right, Declan.
I've been successful
Yeah.
in Kilmead and Ballyduff, where there's a €96,000 investment
Now.
going to be spent over the next 3 to 4
that
weeks.
€96,000 investment, I think, wasn't John's person. I think it was the
It-
Tidy
it-
Towns.
it-
It was the
it was-
Tidy
it was-
Towns.
it was
strictly
my
Tidy.
input. Well,
Can I
my
say
first
that
Tidy
name-
Towns.
I just read outside there. I'm delighted to see that there's a report on linking the city to the Greenway.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
That is going to transform it as well. That's all positive stuff. We shouldn't be fighting over who.
Gentlemen,
who
you'll
gets
have to
what
get on
where.
your bikes now, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
just
We'll
in
be
terms
back
of
to
the
you.
Greenway, there was a motion passed the Comeragh Council to extend it to Portlaw, so it will happen over
Will
time.
happen,
Well,
Like I said, it's very easy to put
and
a footpath from Kilmeaden out there. It's as easy as that. We'd have it done years ago. We'd have it done years ago,
I'm
John.
here today, David. I'm here today
Years
with,
ago.
with a delivery of €96,000,
Well, that's-
and I'm also proud of the support.
That's
I
not like
gave the
Fianna
Greenway.
Fáil be claiming
And-
Talk
and-
to you,
and-
talk
and-
to you
and-
if you
and-
like.
and-
Delivery of
and-
Back in a second, we gotta leave, we gotta go. Get on your bikes, lads, get on your
Unlike
bikes.
Declan,
John,
unlike Declan who
John,
proposed a
John.
who proposed a €5 charge for everybody using the Greenway.
No. Talk to you in a minute. Good luck.
John.
Which